Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, my name is Malin Alpsten, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Bright Day Graphene. And today I will tell you about the super material of the future that has been awarded the Nobel Prize, that has a higher market value than gold, that can improve the performance in a wide range of products, and that we make from lignin. And the material I'm talking about is, of course, graphene. This fantastic carbon material that most of you might have heard of, that is 200 times stronger than steel. It's flexible, transparent. It's a superconductor. It conducts both heat and electricity with no resistance at all. And it's also a 2D material, only one layers of atoms, which means that we get a lot of surface area, but almost no weight. And all of these properties makes graphene the perfect candidate to revolutionize a wide range of products and markets. But the discovery of graphene got recognition by the Nobel Prize in 2010. So it's been 14 years now, and a lot of the graphene potential has not yet been realized. And this is because it turned out to be quite hard to mass produce graphene with all these fantastic properties still in place. So there are two main ways to produce graphene today. One is the CVD graphene, where you produce graphene on a substrate, one layer. Here you get a lot of the properties still there, but it's made on a substrate and kind of hard to transfer without lowering the quality because it gets injured. And the other method is the graphene nanoplatelets, where you take graphite and exfoliate it mechanically or electrochemically into a graphene powder. You get nano-sized flakes that are often a bit thicker, not a one atom layer. And this means that you lose a lot of the properties that is so fantastic about graphene, especially the electrical properties. So what we wanted to do was to make another kind of graphene. It's still a graphene powder, but with larger and thinner flakes, which gives it more of the electrical properties. So we developed this process that we patented, where we transform lignin into a graphene powder that we call grapholium, that has the large thin flakes that gives us better conductivity and makes it suitable for the high-tech applications, like energy storage and electronics. And this is a high value-added process. Graphene is adding a lot of value to these products. And when it comes to the lignin that we use, we developed this process based on craft lignin, actually from the lignobose process that Hannah was talking about. And we have mostly used the softwood lignin that is mostly available here in Sweden. And we have tried a lot of different lignins. And what we have discovered is that we are not that sensitive to the method of producing the graphene, anything, or the lignin. They all work for us. We have quite a robust process, and it's not so sensitive. But the type of woods is makes more of an impact on the material. So hardwood works in general. We've tried eucalyptus, and that makes a beautiful graphene. The properties are slightly different, so it's suitable for different applications, but it's a good material. But we also tried birch, and that does not work at all. Neither does grass lignin, unfortunately. But otherwise, most can be used, and we prefer the low molecular weight lignin. So if we can somehow modify the genes to make it more low molecular, that would suit us very well. And the material that we get is actually a reduced graphene oxide with an oxygen content between 3 and 10%. And the most important feature for us with our graphene is that we call it green, because it's from a renewable source, instead of a finite resource that most graphene comes from graphite. And graphite is also, since 2020, on the EU critical list of critical raw materials, because we use a lot of graphite in Europe today, and we need to import 95% of it, mostly from China. So to be a more resilient society, it's good if we can move away a little bit from graphite or find other sources to make it. And then we have these large thin flakes that we get that gives us a lot of good properties. And another good thing about the way we produce it from lignin is that we get a more controlled process. When you produce from graphite, the quality can differ from batch to batch, depending on the quality of the graphite. You also get a wide variety of the size of the flakes when you make it from graphite, while here we get a much smaller variety. So the reproducibility of the process is a lot better when you make it from lignin than from graphite. If you look at the graphene market, I initially said here that graphene has a higher market value than gold. And this is both true and false, depending on the quality. Because you can find graphene on the market for as low as $20 a kilo, but it's also sold at the price tag of $100,000 a kilo. So there's a big variety. And the most expensive kinds is the CVD graphene that is perfect quality, but that's almost only used for research, because you can't really base commercial products on a material that cannot be mass-produced and is that expensive. But a lot of what is sold as graphene today is not really graphene, because graphene is one layer of atoms, and we say that between 1 to 10 layers, it still counts as graphene. But a lot of what is sold, and especially down here with a low price tag, is actually more of a nanographite. It can be 50, 100, or even 300 layers sometimes. But for some applications, this does not really matter. One application that we have seen a lot is in sports equipment. Head has had a line of products, I know tennis rackets and alpine skis, for instance, with graphene in them. And for that type of application where you don't need the conductivity of the material, it doesn't really matter. Same goes for a lot of building materials. At the moment, there's a lot of focus on mixing a small amount of graphene into concrete, and not because it makes it stronger or more flexible, that might also be a feature, but because it lowers the CO2 emissions by 20%. And that is a huge market, of course, although the price tag is a bit lower. There are so many different applications you can do with graphene. That is the blessing and the curse of working with it. The same goes for lignin, I think. And I'm sure that we will, in 20 years or so, have graphene in a lot of products around us. The conductivity in the material and the surface area sometimes as well. And for our materials, since we have the larger, bigger flakes, which we define as a higher quality, we have chosen to focus a lot on the energy storage market. So we try this in batteries, in supercapacitors, and in heat sinks and some other things. Material support sometimes, because there are companies making bio-based materials that want to have a stronger material, and then they come to us to have the bio-based graphene to be able to still stay 100% bio-based. But we made trials in batteries, and what we learned is that we can prolong the lifetime of a battery by 2.8 times when we mix in a very small amount of our bio-based graphene. And it's probably more than 2.8 times, but we couldn't, the project time was limited, so we had to stop there. But that's one feature that we get. But we also know that we get a faster charging of the battery as well, enables that. But also, we see that the fire safety of the battery gets better. We haven't done this test, but I know that another company has, where they took one battery with graphene in it and one battery without graphene. This is lithium-ion batteries. And then they took a gun and shot at them. And the one without graphene exploded right away, while the lithium-ion battery with graphene in it just got a hole through it where the bullet went through, and nothing else happened. And I think this area is very interesting because already there are ferries or garages where you're not allowed to have your electrical car. And I think there might come a lot of rules and regulations around this eventually, where the battery manufacturers will have to find ways to make the batteries safer. And then we can be an enabler for this. And I'm not doing this alone. I have my colleague, Anna Karlsson, who is not here today, but she is the brilliant inventor behind this idea. And we are currently at a small scale still, but we are getting requests for larger samples than we can provide. So we need to scale our business, and that's the plan to do in the upcoming years. We plan to build a plant in the northern part of Sweden, where we can produce a ton of graphene material a year from lignin. So that's all I had. Thank you for listening.